Hi there, and welcome to SynerZip's webinar. Today is April 18th, and we're about ready to start. Today's webinar is on business intelligence and analytics on the cloud and healthcare. And basically, with business intelligence, you have options. And today we're going to explore whether it's Hadoop or Snowflake or Tableau or Looker. There's a lot of big changes that are taking place in the landscape. So today's webinar is going to take an actual case study of one of our clients, and we're going to review some relevant technology alternatives. So with that, before we get started though, let me just remind everybody that I am recording today's webinar, and within the next 24 hours you will all receive an email from me with the direct link to the recording and the slides and some other infographics that we're going to throw up there on the website as well. So that's going to be recorded. So now I've introduced the topic, and our panelist today is, first of all, we have Todd Crossland. He's the CIO at PDX. He's one of our clients at SynerZip, and he's a pharmacy executive with a background and success in startup and high growth and complex environments. And our moderator and kind of our interviewer today is going to be Vinayak Jaglekar, and he is the co-founder and CTO of SynerZip. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Vinayak.
Thanks, Jill, and thanks for having me on this webinar. Today's topic is particularly interesting given all of us, the situation that we are in today, are wondering whether we should be switching from our old RDBMS, be it Oracle or DB2 or whatever it is, to the new NoSQL big data kind of solutions such as Hadoop or Snowflake, or there are a lot of others like Cassandra and Node.js based things. So we always think of these solutions because the motive could be that our data is so big that it can't fit into one computer, so we need to think of a new solution because we need to distribute the data across multiple nodes. Or it could be because it is unstructured to an extent that we can't really squeeze it into some kind of structure that is needed by a traditional relational database solution. But are these the only two motivating factors? I mean, there could be another reason for which we need to look at these new technologies. So today, I'm glad we have Todd here, who we are going to start with asking the first question: what exactly was the motive, and what did the solution that present day solution that you had before you thought of switching to these new technologies? What was the motive? Why were you thinking of switching to a new technology?
Sure. Good morning, everybody, or evening, or wherever you may be. This is Todd, and Vinayak. Yes, what I'm going to do is we kind of go throughout this presentation. Since we're kind of doing it, Vinayak and I, as a Q&A, I'm going to be hopping back and forth to show different visualizations. I'm not going to be just kind of walking through a PowerPoint, and Vinayak are going to kind of go back and forth and toss this back and forth. And so to kind of present, I'm going to jump through some slides just to give you a visual perspective. And if you see there, PDX is a pharmacy software company, and we've got pharmacies all across the United States, all of them generating data every day, all day, that we manage on behalf of those clients. And for us, we've as Vinayak said, we have a lot of experience with relational databases, and we were asked by one significant customer to come up with a what I'll call, just for lack of a better phrase, a data feed solution, an ODS, operational data store solution, and we attempted to do that on a relational database platform, and it was Oracle. Oracle is our typical relational database as well, and what we came across is if you're going to live in the Oracle world, if you're going to go to any type of scale that that you need, you're going to have to look at an Exadata type of solution. For us, we are currently a hybrid situation. We have our own data centers here in Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas, but we are also a AWS customer and client as well now. So we are what you hear out there and everyone knows as a hybrid cloud environment today, and I'll get more into that. But for us, it was basically our legacy solution from a data warehouse perspective. And you've heard all these things before. From a scalability perspective, if I wanted to scale, I'd have to continue to buy hardware. I didn't know if I bought enough. Never would know if I bought enough until I start using it. Then how fast are my queries, and what's the technology I need to have on top of that to do data visualization? How am I doing my analytics? And so for us, our legacy solution was, it was slow, it wouldn't scale, all things that you typically hear about many of the on-premise or what I'll, for lack of a better phrase, legacy or non-cloud-based solutions that have been out there for many, many years.
So Todd, you said a couple of things here that are interesting. So first thing that you said, that your motive was firstly because you have a geographical spread or geographical distribution of data across multiple locations. So that could be one of the reasons why you require multiple nodes on which you will be distributing the data. And second thing that you said is to do with building a solution that is cloud-based and moving from having to manage the data center yourself to a hybrid model wherein it becomes more scalable, because once you're on a solution like AWS or any competing solution, it is easier to scale. So am I right if I say that your primary motive was not the variability or the unstructuredness, if I coin that term, of the data?
Yeah, I would say unstructured or distributed, and I think this is, I'll go ahead and hop to the next slide there, and this is a lot to take in on a slide, but this really gives what our technology overview looks like. And while correct that the data, if you look at how our customers work, you have a pharmacy, you have a corporate headquarters. For us, a typical client in the United States is a Safeway, Albertsons, Kaiser Permanente out on the West Coast, Costco, Meijer. So you have, we're the company behind the company. And so you've got pharmacies, thousands of pharmacies spread across the U.S. with workstations. Some of our customers have what's called EPS, the Enterprise Pharmacy System server, there in the pharmacy. Others are now using our cloud EPS. When you see public right now, think of that as being Amazon Web Services. And so you've got basically dispensing data that's being performed all throughout the day. However, in real time, that data is moving up to what's known as our EPR. If you're familiar with healthcare, most of the time in the news you hear about EMR, which is the electronic medical record, or EHR, the overarching electronic health record. EPR, you think of as a subset, again, of an EHR. It's the electronic pharmacy record. This is a crowdsourced real-time clinical database that is built on Oracle, is a relational database, and that is one of the core components and sources of data that we want to get into an OLAP database, and wanted to get into an OLAP database that was able to scale just as this guy scales as we bring on more and more pharmacies, as we use other data sources. And I won't spend the time getting into all these different applications, whether it's a clinical application, a financial application. All of these are generating data at massive amounts every day. So we need, and as we build in new applications, which is going to be another data source, whether that's mobile, whatever that might be, that's all more and more data sources that we have to take in and want to take in. And that data can be relational data. It could be log file data that's semi-structured. It could be any type of data. So that for us is important for us to have a very, very easily scalable solution.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. So you're not only talking about unstructured data, but there is quite a lot of it which is structured, but there is also some what you termed as semi-structured data, which is interesting. So there are three things, three basic, you can say, terms that define what we call as big data. So one is the volume, the second is the variability, and the third is the variety. Now, we covered the variety and variability part. So can we now turn our attention to volume? Now, what kind of volumes are we talking about? Like, can you just tell us what is the size of data that you guys are talking about moving into this solution here?
Yep, and I'll use another visual for that. I like to, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And so what this is this is a real, this is, you look up in the top left and you kind of notice the Looker is our data visualization tool of choice. And if you look at this data, what this represents is our ETL processing times back in the fall. And we chose this time frame because this is when we did some significant changes. So when you look across the number of days here, you'll see that typically we were bringing in anywhere from 9 to 20 to 20, 30 million records on any regular day is what we were ingesting into our data warehouse, which represented about 600 tables, is about where it's at today. And again, on a regular day, we would be pulling in anywhere from 9 to 20 plus million records. On this Tuesday here, September 20th, we actually brought on a new client, and so it was a small client. And so we did an initial load and brought in 233 million records. Now, if you look here at the time, we were pulling this data in anywhere, and this is minutes, anywhere from 67 minutes, and even when we brought in 233 million records, it only took 161 minutes. So you're looking at the volume is that you're looking at this here. Now, obviously, this is why I chose this time frame. If you look September 25th, prior to this date, we probably had about 2 billion, over 2 billion plus records across our 600 tables. Records up to 6 billion records were ingested in 226 minutes into our enterprise data warehouse. Once we got all of this in there, we run in our, what I'll call our active enterprise data warehouse. We do have a time travel, copies of the data that go back 7 days, but the active data warehouse today runs at about 7, almost, I guess we're about at 8 terabytes today for what we're running in the active database. After we did that, you'll notice that the merge times, even though the record count went way back down, we all know, I don't care how good your database is, you got more data, the merging takes longer. But what happened here, if you go through the other days, you see a significant drop from 200, basically just over 2 hours, not 2 hours, but 4 hours, back down to 2 hours, because all we had to do is, in our solution, we went from one large warehouse, compute warehouse, our compute and our storage is separate. We went from one large warehouse to 2 large warehouses and basically cut that time in half. Even more great was the capability was for us to then switch from 2 larges down to 3 mediums, which is a little bit less expensive, and you can see the difference there in the times that it took for us to ingest this data. So it's that kind of gives you a sense for the speed, the volume of data. Typically, we're getting, because of a columnar database, that what Snowflake is, we're less than half of our production databases that we're pulling from are easily over 30 terabytes of data, and so we're now in the 7 to 8. So it's pretty much more like a third, a little bit less than a third of the size inside the columnar database.
All right. So, to give some idea to the audience about what these times looked like before. So I'm sure that what you're talking about is the advantage that you have now, that you have this Snowflake solution that we have jumped to already. But let's pull back a little and talk about what it was like before in terms of the performance and the time it used to take.
Right. So it's a good visual here. If you basically, this right here, this aspect of pulling in 6 billion records would have taken over 2 weeks. would be the guesstimate. We loaded in one significant customer into that database. It took a week. And so I have to think it will be weeks to get that data ingested into the prior legacy solution. Then on the query side, basically the way I put it is this, is that we today with Snowflake and Looker, we query in seconds to minutes, and we load in hours, not days or weeks. In the legacy solution, we queried in hours, if not days, and we loaded in days or weeks. So just the exponential factor of speed is massive.
Wow. So that brings me to the next question. So, what is the value of getting your queries done in time? Because, when we talk about business decisions, your timeliness of those decisions is very important. And, I want to know, what are we talking about? We need near real-time decision-making or real-time decision-making, or a day or two is okay, or a week is okay. What kind of, speed is needed by your business?
Right. And what we showed there is last fall when we were loading only our data, we're only loading our data once a day. And again, it comes down to the timing of this solution is we signed contracts and we did our POC last in the December, January timeframe of 2015 going into 2016. We then executed contracts by March of last year, and our solution was live in May of 2016 with our customer. And so at that point, our customers were just, very, very ecstatic just to get the data on a daily perspective. When we did the proof of concept, we were actually loading it hourly, and now we're moving to, we can load it hourly, and we're going to be moving to 15 minutes. So when you look at the different types of how we use the data from a pharmacy perspective and how our customers use it, if you're doing financial data feeds, that's not a huge deal. You can get that, once a day, and typically your accountants and your bean counters are going to be pretty happy with that. But if you're talking about operational data and some compliance data and support, when you look at, our customers that have hundreds, if not thousands of pharmacies spread across the U.S., having an ability for near real-time data in order to look at where there might be, traffic jams and workflow issues across your pharmacy, it takes a lot to invest to get your patients, and the last thing you want to do is to lose a patient to a competitor. And so operationally, having that data near real time is very, very important. One of the significant changes we've made in order to support that is to do a JSON feed that, file-based. We use Golden Gate to get the data out of our electronic pharmacy record, to get the change data capture aspect, so you can get a nice both current state and historical state data. But from a pharmacy perspective and operationally, you want to get that data as quickly as possible. So we are using JSON to stream that data to bypass the file-based method in order for us to get that near real-time analytics. And so from that perspective, to get that from an operational perspective and even compliance, if there's a lot that goes on around the dispensing of controlled substances here in the U.S., so it's important for us to be able to be on top of that data and find anything where there might be issues.
Yeah, so that's kind of brings me to the next question, where you're talking about financial data, operational data, compliance data. All these are very sensitive in nature because you're dealing with lives of people. So correct. How did you, what kind of hurdles did you face in kind of convincing your customers that, look, it is safe to use or safe to be on the cloud, and since you're moving to a cloud-based solution now, which is I think pay-as-you-use basis, kind of right. Infrastructure as a service solution from a vendor. Now, what do you tell your customers? What kind of objections you had, and how did you overcome those objections?
Sure. And if I go back to the prior picture, when you look at the hybrid cloud here, everything outside of this little subset are things that are in our data centers in Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas. And so basically when we went to the public cloud and we looked at Amazon and we looked at Snowflake specifically, I don't think I've specifically mentioned it. Anyone can go see, Snowflake is hosted on AWS. it comes down to the legal aspect of making sure that you have a proper business associate agreement, but also just from a security perspective. We spend a lot of time reviewing what are, SOC audits, physical security, and then there are mechanisms of how, both Amazon secures their environments as well as Snowflake specifically. And so one of the things to recognize is that as we, in our environments, we encrypt at rest and we encrypt in transit. And that's even within our data centers, in between our data centers. And so similarly, that's kind of how Snowflake works, is that we actually, before we send data up into the storage at Snowflake, we encrypt that data using Snowflake's encryption methodologies, so that it's encrypted once it lands. And again, when it's at rest, it is encrypted. When it's in transit at any point, it is encrypted as well. And it's not going to get unencrypted until you're presenting that data to an end user, and that's when you can do that. So we spent a lot of time working with both companies. From a healthcare perspective, we weren't the first, customer in Amazon as far as from a healthcare perspective. They have a pretty long track record of working with healthcare companies, and Snowflake was built on top of that infrastructure. So it was not a 5-minute conversation by any stretch. We have, again, business associate agreements with both entities, and they have a lot of things they have to do from a compliance perspective, and to make sure that they can perform to the SOC audits that are necessary for HIPAA and PHI.
Yeah, but then, as I understand, Todd, you have a different variety of customers, and you have, companies that are small, medium, and big of all sizes that you are dealing with. And I'm sure they have different legal requirements when it comes to, security.
Right.
So you just can't have one size fit all kind of solution, because you're dealing with a variety of customers. So I'm sure this is the kind of a multi-tenant solution where everyone is using the data warehouse that you have built here. So am I wrong there, or is it that you were able to get them to a common denominator and arrive at a common understanding with all of them?
Yep. So that's been our world for 30 plus years now. Is that for us, we have to, in order to meet the needs, and basically what you have here is a common code base and a common common database. EPR is logically separated. Very similarly, the data inside Snowflake at the storage level we logically separate that. And so if you have a small customer, they could share a virtual warehouse, but they logically only have access to their data, whether they're using Looker or another visualization tool on top of Snowflake. A big customer may have their own dedicated warehouse, but again, we've set up all the security and protocols to make sure that any one customer only has access to their data. But it is common, and customers, anyone who comes to talk with us, if they don't know out of the gate, they learn very quickly that we try to make things as common as possible, just because it would be impossible. I say not impossible, it would be very expensive, and I don't think viable in the healthcare space to have a one-off solution for each one of our customers. So it is all in one solution, shall we say, both from not just from an enterprise data warehouse perspective, but from a electronic pharmacy record perspective, and then from a code perspective, the enterprise pharmacy system where they do their dispensing is a common code base, while the databases may be spread across the U.S.
Yeah, that helps. But still, I haven't got the complete answer to my question when it comes to the legal kind of contracts that you have with these vendors. So you need to have some kind of back-to-back arrangement with Snowflake to make sure that you have the SLAs that are demanded by your customers satisfied by Snowflake. So since you have a variety of those SLAs on hand, how do you make sure that your one legal agreement that you have with Snowflake covers all of them?
Yeah, it's how we have built the structure of the contracts, is that we do that a lot. We just ensure that we are acting as the customer's business associate. They are the covered entity, and so we work with our customers to make sure that our contracts with our customers can sit on top of our contracts with customers with partners like Snowflake as well as Looker. So we're very transparent, generally speaking, as transparent as we can be in working with our customers. But they're very well aware of all of our relationships and all the partners that we bring to the table. It is, let's say, unique, and they are partners where we put it together. If you notice the name up there, I hadn't even said it yet. We branded this solution as ExplorerX, which allows us to bring a package solution to our customers, and therefore our customers are signing a contract with us for ExplorerX, and then we manage the back-end relationships with the vendors.
Yeah, so that's kind of good. Yeah, that I understand. So now coming to the next one, that what kind of batch size are we talking about? So is it, first of all, a streaming kind of solution? Because many people in the audience are now getting a lot of information about latest and greatest tools, like be it Spark or be it Storm, where you can use streaming data, and you are able to do things basically in streaming. They don't have to have a batch at all. So
right.
Are we talking about streaming data or a batch of some size? What is the batch size that we're talking about?
Yeah, and we use both, and this is where, I'll say this is my background as a business person, that they made the CIO, and so to me it's always important that we meet the business need in the best way possible. And so for us, and I'll use a good example, our PDX host it's a database of managing data that doesn't change that frequently, and so it's a drug database is typically what it's used for. It's a drug reference database. So for us, streaming this data does not have a lot of value. It's an older platform, and so going a batch file process, which is pretty small, we're talking about megs, hundreds of megs, gigs maybe of data. So doing a file for all the changes that occurred in any one day and pushing that up into Snowflake makes a lot of sense, just because there's no reason to stream that data. It's just not changing that frequently, and so it's very important, again, to meet the business need. Whereas if I've got workflow queues at a pharmacy that are getting backed up, I want to stream that data. We use a product called Symmetric, and we hang JSON off of Symmetric, which allows us now to stream that data in. And so for us, do I see some of these other data sources moving from file to JSON? Oops, sorry. Yes. As we move along and we become a more mature shop, we will be changing over what we deem as more operationally relevant. We'll switch that over to the JSON model, whether that's on Symmetric or another solution, and we will be streaming that information up into Snowflake to get at the data quicker.
Yeah, so one reason why you require streaming data is to make sure that you are able to have the same version of truth across multiple places where your data is by maintaining some level of consistency. So how important it is for you. Okay, so let me ask the question differently. So as you know that you have three things to play with: consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. And given that you have a distributed data, I think you need partition tolerance. Now, right. You can either have availability or you'll have consistency. So of the two, what did you opt for? I mean, when you compared different solutions, what was more important for you? Was consistency more important in terms of like you have in ACID transactions, or was availability more important for you?
Yeah, and that's always the fun answer is both, right? It depends on who. So if you're, if let's say that this is a very, very large customer, just to make it an easy visually. Let's say that these virtual warehouses actually represented only one customer. We could literally have a virtual warehouse, let's say titled N owner, if this data could be financial data, but again, it's all here in the same storage, but these guys could be worried about financial data, where consistency is massively important. And so for them, while we may be streaming real-time workflow bottleneck type data that may be coming in here, they're not going to be focused on that data. So what we've done is we've managed to balance and have both. So when they're looking at the structure and the way that we modeled the data, is that you're able to get financial data, and that data will be consistent. Whereby you may have an operational warehouse, virtual warehouse over here. These are your district managers, and they're looking at Looker, and they're saying, hey, I've got a bottleneck at store 123. I need to go ahead and address that. That's going to come in as very available data, but the intention there is for it not to be, quote, perfect. Because, again, it's going to be constantly changing, but a bottleneck should be very evident. A backlog where I'm waiting for physicians to call me back, or for whatever reason I've got a point of sale issue, or something's happening at that pharmacy. I want to know that information very, very quickly. So we actually are capable and are doing this today. We have both operational looks and financial looks that meet the needs of both being available and both consistent. And when I say at the same time, it's for just different audiences.
Right. I mean, yeah, obviously, I mean, you can't be violating the CAP theorem, but I understand that for the right business need, you have a solution that can be consistent when needed and available when needed. And when it's like when we're talking about your financial data, if it is eventually, I mean, if it's available on a daily basis, it's okay. And for your operational data, even if it's eventually consistent, it's okay. So that way you have the best of both worlds here, is what I understand. So, yeah, so, what alternatives were you considering? I mean, very often one is we want the best of both worlds, but we don't get. And we have a solution which is known to be AP. There's some other solution which is known to be CP. But so what were the other solutions that you compared before you decided on Snowflake?
Sure. Yep. And so when we did our proof of concept, we put Snowflake up against a Hortonworks Hadoop implementation inside Azure. And we challenged our teams we kind of split them up and challenged them to basically have a working solution inside 4 to 6 weeks. And what basically happened is that 2 weeks in, we had several billion. We did what's called safe harboring the data. We removed all the PHI, obviously, as part of the POC, but we had safe harbor data inside of Snowflake in 2 weeks. We did not have it inside Hadoop, and I think for me, and again, while I do have a business background, I'm very technical as well, and the challenge for us with Hadoop is there's lots of tools, there's lots of flexibility, there's lots of different there's many different ways to get something done, and I think that's one of our challenges. Unfortunately, in the case of Azure, we also had a storage issue where we did have to kind of battle with them in order to get storage allocated and to handle the 2 billion records that we wanted to work with. And so for us, it was a frustrating effort to look at and to try to bring up Hadoop because of the fact that it is a very complex. Open source has its value. We use many, many open source tools, Symmetric being one of them. But for us, what we found, and as soon as we got the data into Snowflake, is that we found that we had both a big data, big crunchy, ability to do big analytics, but also we can run an ad hoc query and get those responses back in a matter of seconds or minutes at the worst, and not have to wait for hours or days in order to get responses. And for our customers, that's a huge benefit to be able to just write an ad hoc query and get those results back very, very quickly. So for Hadoop, it was, might there be a time and a place for us to use Hadoop in the future? What I tell people is the answer is maybe. Whenever I get to the point where I need Snowflake to do something and it can't, then we will entertain other thoughts. I'm kind of teasing where we're headed here a little bit, but we've placed R on top of Snowflake and been able to do some very, very simple predictive analytic work. By no means where we're going to end up, but so as long as it can continue to handle and perform and get us the data we need and the information we need whether that's structured or semi-structured data, then we're going to stick with where we're at. So to us, Hadoop was an unnecessarily complex implementation that did not get us the value. So about 3 weeks into the POC, we went ahead and abandoned Hadoop because with Snowflake we had everything we needed, and then we moved to the comparison between Looker and Tableau. So that's kind of how we ended up. And like I said, we know Hadoop will work. It can work, but for us, having the pieces that we needed out of the gate and something very, very simple to work with, you can kind of go from there. I mean, anyone here, if you haven't already done it, can go out to AWS in the marketplace and fire up a Snowflake implementation and go ahead and pay as you go and start to use the technology today. So Hadoop, a little more to it for that. But
yep. So one of the things that favors Hadoop is it's open source and it has a large community and a big ecosystem around it. And, in terms of availability of talent, I thought that Hadoop would be a choice because there are more people who know Hadoop and MapReduce than those who would have played with Snowflake. So on both counts, one is the cost, since I'm sure Snowflake is not a free open source solution, whereas Hadoop would be more or less free. Of course, you would have to spend the resources for hosting it. And second thing I want you to talk about is availability of talent, because I always thought that it was easier to find talent who would know Hadoop.
right. Yeah, and that is, it's definitely a consideration. It's with Snowflake, you're getting a enterprise data warehouse as a service. If you go and research on Snowflake, the key is that they don't do indexing, and it's a core component. Is the idea is that Snowflake manages the warehouse for you, so that you don't have to spend the time doing that. So you don't need a bunch of expertise of going in and reconfiguring and regrouping and reclustering and just doing all these different things that you have to with that open source solution. So for us, we're paying for it as a service instead of getting a team of expertise. So just to kind of lay out the staffing so everyone kind of understands, we have a small team of about 7 to 8 people in the U.S. and we have another 8 to 10. And that is where Synerzip comes in. We do many other things with Synerzip, but we're talking about a team of 14, 15, 16 staff that manages this entire Explorer X solution. If we went the Hadoop route, you would have to be adding a number. I don't even know what that number is. I don't know if I want to know what that number is for someone to maintain the Hadoop environment. And so we're basically paying for that as a service. I think if financially you look at the cost of Snowflake and you get what you pay for. You want it to go faster, you pay a little more. You want it to go bigger and have more storage, you go bigger. Their storage costs are very comparable to core S3 storage costs, so it is a very, very viable solution. So it's a question of where do you want to spend your money and as far as building your own. And we're a software company, as you can see from what we've shown, everything underneath there, we've built it ourselves, but we know pharmacy. And so when it comes to an analytical, massively fast, elastic data warehouse, that's something where we're paying for that as a service.
Yeah, but Hadoop has its own ecosystem that I referred to, and when it comes to reports and visualization, you have a lot of things that are available in the market which are in the Hadoop ecosystem, whereas I don't know when it comes to visualizing the data you have, which is where finally the value comes out of, right? So did you look at that aspect as well?
Yes, and that's, for us, we ended up going with, we looked at MicroStrategy was the incumbent. We'd used it for a while, and we invited them to the POC against Tableau and Looker, and we basically, and for us, recognizing who we are and for us that was important, just for us to understand the technology that Looker was being built upon. Tableau is more of a Microsoft shop. But for us, it came down to what I kind of have here on the screen is that, Looker is an all-browser solution. There's no downloading of a client. It has an ability for us to embed inside of our applications. Again, it's built on Java. The version control of it is built on Git. And not only the version control of the software itself, but us doing our, again, when I talked about our customers, right? You have, if you have 15, 20, 30 different customers here, they all need to have a core set of dashboards and looks that you can build inside of the tool, but also they need to be able to branch off and create their own versions. That's all done in Git. So that's a massive advantage because of our knowledge about Git and how that works. So it's very light, meaning they have a lookML layer. It's all about SQL. And I use an analyst to a little a analyst to a big A analyst, a little a analyst, a business person that's not really, very technical, can use Looker, be very, very comfortable with it, all the way up to a big A analyst, someone who is an analyst, whether that's technical, a DBA, whomever, and be very, very comfortable working within Looker and get a massive amount of value on it. One of the massive things we've been able to use, and this is from my own personal experience, outliers is very, very valuable data in just about every industry. I was able to go in and use Looker's discourse community and go find the calculations and the mechanisms to plug into Looker. I was finding financial outliers in our customers' data that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings in 10 minutes. And so that just shows the power of someone who's a power user and able to go in and use the community, plug in some standard deviation and some other calculations and come up and find those financial outliers. We've now done operational outliers for our customers where they look at underperforming or overperforming staff members, error rates. So it's become a huge value. And I'm sure you can do that with other solutions, but for us, the speed and the ability to get in there and build something very, very quickly was a huge bonus for us.
Yeah, so, when it comes to any solution like which is directly having to do with customers, customer feedback is extremely important. Did you involve, was there some kind of POC done with customers involved in it, or was it all in-house? I mean, did you take some customers into confidence and start with, was it like a particular day on which you moved all customers, or was it like a gradual way wherein you did a little bit of experimentation with a trusted customer and then, or you can call him an early adopter, and then did a GA release kind of to all other customers? So how did you go about scaling it?
Right. So we, to be honest, when we did this, and that's why I use this screen as we have customers that are maybe a really, really mature Tableau user or what have you, and so to be very honest, we normally bring in customers fairly early. On this one, we didn't bring them in too early because we were going very, very quickly and trying to build out what we knew we wanted to take to market. There's also some surprise and some it was a great, for us to come out and bring it to market and surprise our customers and our competition. So we did want to keep it a little bit, which is atypical. We kept it a little bit more quiet than normal. But as soon as we brought it to market, we did engage our larger customers and some of the mid-sized ones to get their feedback. And what's kind of happened is that, customers would say, oh, I just want all the data. Just give me access to the data. Then when we give them access to Snowflake and they have access to all 600 tables, they say, oh, oops, maybe I don't want just raw access to the data. Maybe I do want you to do some data visualization for us. And recognizing that we do a lot of work, we have hundreds, if not thousands of measurements and things that we do inside Looker, which allows us to take that data and to make some financial sense or operational sense out of it. We generate a lot of data every day. And so we kind of slowly, we did engage with one forward-looking client. They are the longest, customer. Again, they signed on right in May of last year. And they're now in the proposition. I think for some of you may kind of know where this is going. You have to recognize for our customers, they're not just pharmacy, right? If you're a Safeway Albertsons, you're a grocery store that has a pharmacy in it. So what's happening is all their pharmacy data is going into Snowflake, but what about their other data? What about their point of sale data? What about HR data? What about all this other stuff? So the interesting conversations we're having now are around, okay, the pharmacy group inside these companies is now, kind of showing off. We're kind of saying, look what we can do, the speed at which we can do it, and their more legacy and in-house on-premise data warehouses are taking a look at Snowflake as a mechanism to possibly move the rest of their data into Snowflake as well. So that's kind of, and like you said, Vinayak, we've got small customers, mid-sized customers that they were taking our data, had their own data warehouses. They were, doing all kinds of things around loyalty data and what have you. So this has kind of been a shock to the system to present a cloud-based data warehouse that is more agile, more elastic than anything that anybody has currently for any one of our customers. So it's definitely been a unique conversation for each customer.
Wow. So are we talking about a big bang kind of war story here where all the customers kind of migrated to this new solution, on a weekend kind of thing? Or, can you quantify, like it took a week, 2 weeks, or what was it? What did it look like?
Yeah, excuse me. All of our customers' data, so we're not using the enterprise data warehouse just as a product for Explorer X. We now use Snowflake for all of our customers internally in order to support those customers. We look at our metrics for all of our systems and support those systems out of Snowflake today. So this core data that's in our data centers is already all in Snowflake. So for a customer, when we go to turn them on, it takes a day. It is basically, or even a minute, because all we're doing is giving them access via Looker into their data. We've already got all the security models set up, so we know what their data is and how it's isolated, and they could get access to their data in a day. The exception to that is what's known as the symmetric data or the EPS data, and this is actually changing. We're going to go ahead and make this a default and going ahead and turning on all of our customers to stream this data up into Snowflake as well, because again, from a support perspective and operationally, it just makes sense. And there's other reasons we're doing it to serve some of our other applications and serve them out of Snowflake. So Snowflake is becoming that hub. So when you look at what is OLTP down here, Snowflake is our OLAP, and we may use it as a bridge between two OLTP systems if it makes sense. So we're getting more and more use out of Snowflake every day, and that's kind of how we're doing it. So when you say big bang, we already did the big bang, as I kind of talked about. We did that initial load back here last fall, where we've got that big chunk of the core data is loaded into Snowflake. Now we're just keeping the data in sync from a day-to-day perspective.
Wow. So your customers must be elated with this kind of solution, I'm sure, and they must be very happy, and I'm sure they're going to come back to you with more innovative ways. And you alluded to some time back, leveraging this with a bit of R language algorithm sitting on top to do predictive analytics. So can you tell a little bit, as we are coming to a wrap-up of this today, and then we'll go to Q&A. So before we wrap up, I just want to know a little bit about your future plan, whether you're planning to do any predictive or cognitive analytics. So what it's going to look like going forward?
Yep, absolutely. And that's, to us, our customers have a massive appetite for their retrospective data, for their near real-time data, but where we're leading them is towards the predictive analytics. And a lot of that, we see this all around advertising every day around patient behavior. It's I'm sure most of you, if you're, in the U.S., you've been into a U.S. pharmacy, you look behind the counter and you see all those bags back there hanging. E-pharmacies return to stock anywhere between 10 to 15% of all prescriptions. And what we're looking at, one of the best examples on patient behavior is for us to better learn and understand, the behaviors of the patient of, if you've all been to the doctor and gotten an antibiotic and a pain medication, some patients pick up both, some patients only pick up one of the two. And so as we learn about those patients, we can make better decisions when those prescriptions come in. It used to be everyone gave a prescription in, so you'd ask the patient right there, but now they're coming in electronically, so we don't have that patient in front of us to ask that question. So there's a lot we can do around the patient behavior and trying to tailor our experience with them and understand, how that patient behaves and better serve them when they enter the pharmacy. Forecasting inventories is a massive thing. Again, inventory turns is everything. I don't care if you're a pharmacy or you're stocking grocery shelves, you want to turn that inventory. And so understanding your seasonal changes and as new generic drugs come on the market and be able to forecast and know how much stock do I need on hand for any given day is a huge deal. And then lastly, the hospital readmissions, understanding and being able to predict when a patient gets a certain medication regimen that they've been discharged from a hospital, let's say for having a heart surgery, we can then make that a high-touch patient in order so that we can keep that patient out of the hospital, because that's what it's expensive. It's bad for the patient foremost, but it's bad for our healthcare system whenever patients have to get readmitted to the hospital. So that's just a few examples of where we're going to apply this data and look at it from looking at it statistically and then identifying those opportunities to better serve those patients.
So are we talking about taking some publicly available data for this, such as for predictive analytics, combining patient or analyzing impact of weather, let's say, on climatic changes or weather changes, where the data is available with certain type of illness that could be happening, giving a kind of heads up to the pharmacies what is going to be the demand situation given the change in weather, or am I just imagining things here?
No, I think that's a very good, the people put out, the flu index for the country. We have our own version of that, so we can help our customers, recognize where the flu is going to be hitting, and so they can stock up on the Tamiflu and the other meds for things like that. And so, yeah, we've only just begun. One of the first external data source we brought in that wasn't ours was the U.S. Census. So that allows our customers to look at, and as each census comes out, where's your growth pattern? And they're doing that, to a certain degree, but from a pharmacy growth pattern, looking at market share and where you have an opportunity to hit a certain market, maybe that they're not hitting today, and how they can do outreach. So, the simplest one is U.S. is census data, but yes, whether it's climate data, whether it's there's all different types of opportunities out there for public sources of data or partnerships. We have partnerships growing on the physician practice side. So looking at physician data plus pharmacy data, marry those two together, and you get all kinds of interesting population health opportunities.
Yeah, and then we're going to soon have wearables, and once in your company, I've seen everyone wearing their Fitbits and talking about having kiosks in pharmacies which will read off those Fitbits to kind of prescribe your drugs. So it's an exciting future. A little bit about that. Can you tell us what your plan is there in those wearables?
IoT. Yep, IoT is huge, and the kiosk, like you mentioned. There's several partners we have whereby Internet of Things is going to just bring that massive, larger quantity of data, whether that's steps, whether it's calories burned, whether it's weight, whatever that is. We do believe in the value. There are others in the healthcare community that are not very trusting of patient-generated health data, but we are a huge believer in it because it's a data point. As long as you recognize it's a patient-generated data point, then you take it into account. And if you mash that together with, if a pharmacist, takes your blood pressure, or you go and sit at a kiosk and you get your blood pressure or your BMI, then that's clinically gathered data. But patient-gathered data is absolutely valuable, and we're a huge believer in it. And that is starting to happen as we build out our clinical services applications and working, again, with those partners. So it's happening more and more, and I just see we'll have lab data as part of this data set, obviously and then the clinical data that we get from our clinical services application. So huge. We've only just begun. We've only just scratched the surface, but we believe we've got a set of tools to allow us to build and scale very, very quickly.
Totally, totally. I think we can go on talking for hours on this topic. I mean, it's very exciting, but since we just about 5 minutes left, I think it's time to wrap up. But before we do so, let me ask you, is there something, Todd, that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think you hit it. No, I will mention, I just went to the CenterZip slide. So we basically, this is our 10-year anniversary with CenterZip. We've been very happy, and CenterZip's a partner for us. We basically, CenterZip is our partner in our whole application stack. So we're a 24/7 shop. When our day ends here, the day over in Pune begins, and it's a phenomenal team. And it's not very often that people have 10-year relationships with an offshore partner, but for us, it's just the first 10 years. And so it's a fantastic work that you guys do for us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks. And, for the audience, we have, right now I am here participating in this conversation from Pune, India, and Todd is in Fort Worth in Texas. So it's pretty much demonstrating the partnership that we have here. It's the end of my day and beginning of Todd's day.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, with that, I think if there are any questions or, so let's wrap up here. If there are any questions, we would like to answer those. If there aren't any, we could wrap up.
And Jill or Hemant, did you want me to go through the slides, or you? If there's any questions, obviously we'll wait, and then I can go through the few others.
Todd, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. I was talking and I don't think you could hear me first. So if anybody has any questions to ask, please go ahead and chat them into the chat window right now. But as a real quick overview, CenterZip, we are a trusted outsourcing partner for agile software product development. And like Todd said, we've had this great 10-year relationship going on another 10. Our mission is, we will help come in and accelerate your product roadmap. We can address different technology skill gaps to complement your existing team. Most people are able to save significant dollar value with using offshore outsourcing, and we can also occasionally augment your on-site team with local presence. If you could advance to the next slide, Todd. We do have over 100 plus clients, so this is just a quick snapshot of who some of those clients are. And then on the next slide, if you don't mind advancing one more. You can connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. We do have monthly webinars, as most of you are aware, and our next webinar is going to be May 17th on HIPAA compliance for emerging technology. I'll send you guys all a link where you can register directly. And then I do have another question that did come in from the audience that I'm just going to read to you because I'm not technical, so I don't really understand it. So it's, I want to know how I can relate big data in IAM implementation, which is identity and access management, and
Sure.
Will it be feasible? And he question. So as implementing IAM will also increase data flow over the system in case of web-based large applications. He's just asking for some elaboration.
Yep. So I didn't talk about IAM. So what we're in the middle of, and I don't want to give a vendor name, but we're in the middle of choosing a federation vendor to help us with IAM. And what that will allow us to do is that let's say the customer's going to go full Explorer X, which means then they need access into Looker. So we're looking at multi-factor authentication with this partner solution that will ping off of our customer's AD or whatever their solution is, their IP, their identity provider. Will then federate that and use that in order to gain access in through Looker. But we also have the ability to do the same thing with Snowflake. And so there are some very robust identity management providers out there. We're in the final stages of negotiation with one of them after going through a POC. But that's kind of where we're at. If there's want to get, I hate to get into specifics of those vendors or whatever, but whoever that is, if you can go through Jill to get to me, and I'll be glad to dive into the details. But that's a huge aspect for us is, yes, we have all these customers. How do we manage access management to it? And that is via federation. Today we manage those inside Looker, and it's robust enough, and inside Snowflake, but we know we need that federation to make that a lot easier for our customers for single sign-on. And by the way, that's a federation for all of our SaaS applications that we'll be doing. Our customers will have access to their CareRx application and some other ones via that federated solution.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much, Todd, and thank you, Vinayak, for joining us from India. I know it's late for you.
You're welcome.
And we greatly appreciate everybody's attendance, and we look forward to seeing you next month.